The Los Angeles night hummed with a restless energy. The air, a balmy 75 degrees Fahrenheit, under a sky streaked with the glow of Hollywood's neon dreams. Hell's Gold, Gordon Ramsay's Michelin-starred temple of gastronomy, stood as a beacon on Sunset Boulevard, its sleek glass facade reflecting the flicker of paparazzi cameras, like fireflies on a summer evening. Inside, the 5,000-square-foot dining room pulsed like a Hollywood premiere, every detail curated to dazzle. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms of light across polished marble floors, their gleam rivaling the sparkle of $500 wine bottles on white linen tables. The scent of white truffle risotto mingled with the smoky char of a 12-ounce ribeye, while a jazz trio's smooth notes floated 50 feet from the stage to the open kitchen, where flames danced under Gordon's watchful eye. This was no mere restaurant. It was a stage for Los Angeles elite, where influencers, studio executives, and food critics didn't just dine. They performed, their laughter and clinking glasses echoing like a scene from a blockbuster. Into this cathedral of indulgence stepped Keanu Reeves, a man who seemed to belong to another world entirely. No Rolls-Royce idled outside, no entourage trailed him. He wore a faded leather jacket, its edges frayed from years of wear, paired with worn jeans and scuffed boots that bore the dust of countless miles. A simple canvas backpack hung loosely over one shoulder, its straps weathered, but sturdy, like the man himself. His dark hair fell in soft waves, framing eyes that held a quiet depth, as if they'd seen both the heights of fame and the shadows of struggle. Keanu wasn't here as the action star, whose face graced billboards, towering 100 feet over the city. He was here as a silent investor, one of the unsung heroes who'd poured his heart and his money into Hell's Gold during the dark days of the 2020 pandemic, when the restaurant teetered on the brink of collapse. That investment wasn't just financial. It was a belief in Gordon Ramsay's vision of a place where every guest, no matter their status, could feel valued. Tonight, Keanu had come to see if that vision still held true, slipping through the velvet rope with no announcement, no spotlight, just a soft, "Table for one, please," spoken in a voice as calm as a desert breeze. The dining room buzzed, oblivious to his arrival. At the hostess stand, Ethan Carter, the restaurant's manager, stood like a general commanding a battlefield. His tailored navy suit hugged his frame, his hair gelled to perfection, every detail screaming ambition. At 32, Ethan had clawed his way up from server to manager, his eyes always on the prize, a glowing review from the food critic rumored to be dining tonight, a write-up that could cement Hell's Gold as LA's culinary crown jewel. The critic's presence had Ethan on edge, his smile tight as he scanned the room, ensuring every influencer's cocktail shimmered and every exec's steak hit the table at precisely 135 degrees Fahrenheit. When his gaze landed on Keanu, it sharpened into something else, judgment. The faded jacket, the scuffed boots, the lack of a reservation, they didn't fit the Hell's Gold brand. Ethan's lips curled into a smirk, subtle but cutting, as he thought of the diner down the street, where a burger cost $10, not the $150 royal beef Wellington Hell's Gold was famous for. "This is Hell's Gold," he said, his tone polite but laced with condescension. "Not some walk-in joint. You sure you're in the right place?" Keanu paused, not insulted, just still, his eyes meeting Ethan's with a quiet intensity that seemed to see through the manager's polished facade. "I'd like a table," he replied, his voice steady, like the low hum of a classic Mustang idling at a stoplight. Ethan hesitated, caught off guard by Keanu's calm. The dining room was packed, 200 seats filled with LA's glitterati, their laughter rising like a 4th of July barbecue in full swing. Ethan could have turned him away. Reservations were booked weeks out. But something in Keanu's posture, unassuming yet unshakable, made him relent. "Fine," Ethan sighed. "We might have something." He didn't lead Keanu to the central lounge, where golden light bathed influencers snapping photos of caviar-topped amuse-bouches. He didn't offer a seat near the open kitchen, where diners watched chefs plate with the precision of a Super Bowl playbook. Instead, he guided Keanu to a cramped table, 15 feet from the noisy kitchen door, half hidden behind a drooping fern, where servers dumped trays of dirty plates and the clatter of a dish pit drowned out the jazz. The table wobbled on uneven legs, its scratched oak surface a stark contrast to the marble elegance 30 feet away. "This should work," Ethan said, tossing the menu down with a thud, his eyes flicking to Keanu's boots. "Enjoy." Keanu slid into the chair, its creak swallowed by the dining room's hum. He folded his jacket over the backrest, his movements deliberate, almost reverent, as if the worn leather held stories worth more than the crystal chandeliers overhead. His backpack rested by his feet, a silent companion in a room obsessed with status. Around him, the elite dined under a glow that felt like a Hollywood set, their conversations a mix of deal-making and name-dropping, each word polished like the silverware gleaming 20 feet away. Yet Keanu sat in the shadows, his table a forgotten corner where the air smelled more of dish soap than truffle. He glanced at the menu, his fingers tracing its edge, not with impatience but with curiosity, as if savoring the moment itself. To him, this wasn't just a meal. It was a test of Hell's Gold soul, a chance to see if the restaurant he'd helped rebuild still honored the dignity of every guest, from the A-lister to the stranger in scuffed boots. Across the room, new faces began to notice. Maya Torres, a rookie server barely a month into her job, caught Keanu's eye as she balanced a tray of martinis. His small nod, a gesture of acknowledgement, warmed her in a way Ethan's orders never did. James and Sarah Lynn, a couple celebrating their 5th anniversary, sipped their cocktails 40 feet away, their whispers growing as they watched Ethan's dismissive strut. "Is that Keanu Reeves?" Sarah murmured, her voice tinged with disbelief. Olivia Reed, a food blogger with a keen eye and a Twitter following, tapped her phone, her fingers itching to document the scene. The stage was set, the tension simmering like a pan left too long on a 400-degree grill. Ethan's snap judgment had placed Keanu in the shadows. But the night was young, and in Hell's Gold, where appearances ruled, a lesson in kindness was about to unfold, one that would reflect the American values of fairness and redemption, as raw and real as the city outside. Keanu Reeves settled into the wobbly chair at Hell's Gold, the faint creak of its uneven legs swallowed by the clatter of plates from the service station 15 feet away. The table, tucked beside a drooping fern, and a tray stand piled with dirty wine glasses, felt like an afterthought in the 5,000-square-foot dining room, where Los Angeles elite basked in golden light 50 feet from the live jazz trio's sultry chords. The air here carried the sharp tang of dish soap, not the truffle perfume that wafted through the central lounge, where influencers posed with $200 lobster tails and studio execs toasted deals over glasses of Napa Valley Cabernet. Keanu's faded leather jacket hung over the chair, his canvas backpack resting by his scuffed boots, as out of place as a classic rock vinyl in a streaming playlist. Yet his eyes, calm and observant, scanned the menu with a quiet curiosity, as if the scratched oak surface and flickering overhead light, buzzing every 10 seconds, were just part of the experience he'd come to test. Ethan Carter, the manager, moved through the 200-seat dining room like a director on a Hollywood set, his polished shoes clicking across the marble floor. The pressure of a rumored food critic's visit weighed on him, each laugh and clink of silverware amplifying his need to maintain Hell's Gold's flawless image. At 32, Ethan saw himself as the architect of the restaurant's rise, his ambition as sharp as the 400-degree grill in the open kitchen. When he'd seated Keanu, his smirk had been instinctive, born of a night where every detail had to scream perfection. "This is Hell's Gold, not a diner," he'd said, his voice low but cutting, as if Keanu's worn jeans and lack of a reservation were an affront to the restaurant's brand. Now, circling the main floor, Ethan prioritized a table of tech moguls, adjusting their napkins with theatrical precision, while Keanu's order, a $150 Royal Beef Wellington, aged 45 days and wrapped in mushroom duxelles, languished, unentered in the system. To Ethan, Keanu was a nobody, a walk-in who didn't belong in a room buzzing like a Super Bowl watch party. Across the dining room, Maya Torres, a rookie server barely a month into her job, balanced a tray of martinis, her nerves frayed from Ethan's barked orders. As she passed Keanu's table, her tray tipped, a single glass tumbling toward the floor. Before she could react, Keanu was there, kneeling to pick up the shards, his hands steady as he handed them back with a soft, "No harm done." Maya's cheeks flushed, but his warm nod eased her embarrassment, hinting at a kindness that felt out of place in Hell's Gold's high-stakes chaos. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes lingering on his weathered jacket, wondering why someone so gentle sat at the worst table in the house. She glanced at Ethan, who was now fawning over an influencer couple filming their dessert, and hesitated. Maya wanted to check on Keanu's order, but followed Ethan's lead, assuming the manager knew best. At a table 40 feet away, James and Sarah Lynn, celebrating their 5th anniversary, sipped their cocktails. A $20 old-fashioned for him, a lavender martini for her, under the chandelier's glow. Sarah, in a sleek emerald dress, leaned toward James, her voice low. "That guy at the back table's been waiting forever," she said, nodding toward Keanu. "It's not right." James squinted through the crowd, the jazz trio's saxophone riff cutting through the hum of conversation. "He looks familiar," he murmured. "But why's he getting ignored like that?" Their unease grew as Ethan breezed past Keanu's table, refilling glasses for a group of producers 30 feet away, with a smile that never reached his eyes. The contrast was stark. The Lynn's table gleamed with polished silver, while Keanu's held a single water glass, its contents untouched, a few drops spilled from Ethan's careless pour. Olivia Reed, a food blogger with 100,000 Twitter followers, sat 25 feet from the open kitchen, her phone capturing the night's vibe. Her latest tweet read, "Hell's Gold is stunning, but the service? Shabby treatment for a lone diner at table 12. What's the story?" Ella Foodie. Her sharp eyes caught Keanu's stillness, the way he traced the menu's edge without a hint of frustration, even as 20 minutes passed without his appetizer. She typed another tweet. "This guy's too calm for that table. Something's up." Olivia's followers, used to her takes on LA's dining scene, retweeted rapidly, their comments speculating about the mystery diner in the shadows. The dining room's energy, like a 4th of July barbecue in full swing, masked the growing tension, but Olivia's posts were a spark, threatening to ignite a larger conversation. Ethan, oblivious to the whispers, leaned toward a server near the bar, muttering, "That guy at 12 won't last. Ordered the Wellington like he can afford it." His ambition blinded him, his focus locked on the critic's table, where a 10-ounce filet mignon sizzled under a drizzle of truffle oil. Maya, overhearing, bit her lip, her instinct to check on Keanu warring with Ethan's dismissive authority. She glanced at Keanu, who now studied the jazz trio, his nod of appreciation catching the saxophonist's eye, prompting a soulful riff that seemed to play just for him. The moment was fleeting but electric, a reminder that Keanu's presence, however understated, carried weight. The conflict simmered, as palpable as the heat from the kitchen's 400-degree ovens. Ethan's neglect of Keanu wasn't just a lapse. It was a choice, rooted in the pressure to impress and the assumption that appearances defined worth. Maya's hesitation, the Lynn's growing unease, and Olivia's live tweeting formed a chorus of witnesses, each sensing that the man in the faded jacket was more than he seemed. Hell's Gold's polished veneer, gleaming like the neon signs outside, began to crack, exposing a truth Keanu had come to uncover: that hospitality, at its core, was about dignity, not status. As the jazz trio played on, the stage was set for a reckoning, one that would challenge Ethan's ambition and reveal the heart of the restaurant Keanu had helped build. Keanu Reeves sat at his shadowed table in Hell's Gold, the wobbly oak surface 15 feet from the kitchen door, where the clatter of plates and shouted orders drowned out the jazz trio's saxophone riff, drifting from 50 feet away. 30 minutes had passed since he ordered the $150 Royal Beef Wellington, and his water glass sat empty, its rim catching the flicker of a buzzing overhead light. The Los Angeles dining room, buzzing like a Super Bowl watch party, pulsed with the laughter of influencers and the clink of wine glasses 30 feet away, where the elite dined under crystal chandeliers. Keanu traced the menu's curled edge with a steady finger, his calm unshaken, as if the neglect was just another scene in a life that had weathered far worse. His faded leather jacket hung over the chair, his canvas backpack a silent sentinel by his scuffed boots. But his eyes, deep and observant, held a quiet purpose, as if he were waiting not for food, but for a truth to unfold. Maya Torres, the rookie server, hurried past with a tray of amuse-bouches, her apron stained from a spilled cocktail. She paused near Keanu's table, her heart sinking at the sight of his untouched glass. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said shyly, grabbing a pitcher from the service station and refilling his water with care. Keanu's warm "thank you" carried a sincerity that steadied her nerves, a stark contrast to Ethan Carter's barked orders echoing across the 5,000-square-foot dining room. Maya lingered a moment, her eyes catching the way Keanu nodded to the jazz trio's pianist, a small gesture that prompted a soulful chord, as if he'd kindled something in her. His kindness, subtle yet deliberate, hinted at a depth that didn't match his worn jeans. Maya glanced toward Ethan, who was fawning over a table of studio execs 40 feet away, their $500 wine bottle gleaming under the golden light. She wanted to check Keanu's order but hesitated. Ethan's earlier dismissal, "This isn't a diner," ringing in her ears. At their anniversary table, James and Sarah Lynn exchanged uneasy glances, their cocktails half finished. Sarah, her emerald dress catching the chandelier's glow, leaned closer to James. "He's been waiting over half an hour," she whispered, nodding toward Keanu. "It's not right ignoring him like that." James, squinting through the crowd, murmured, "He looks like Keanu Reeves. But why's he at that table?" The Lynn's unease grew as Ethan breezed past Keanu again, pausing to adjust a napkin for a tech mogul with theatrical flair. The contrast was jarring. Their table, 40 feet from Keanu's, sparkled with polished silver, while his held only a water glass and a menu, its edges curling like a forgotten script. Olivia Reed, the food blogger, tapped furiously on her phone from her perch, 25 feet from the open kitchen, where the sizzle of a 12-ounce ribeye filled the air. Her latest tweet read, "Is that Keanu Reeves getting ignored at Hell's Gold? Shabby service for a lone diner. What's the deal?" LA Foodie. Her 100,000 followers retweeted, their replies buzzing with speculation. "No way that's him," and "Hell's Gold slipping." Olivia's sharp eyes caught Keanu's stillness, the way he sat without a trace of frustration, his gaze drifting to the jazz trio, as if savoring the music over the meal he hadn't received. Her next tweet hinted at his identity. "This guy's too calm for table 12. Bet he's someone big." The dining room's energy, like a 4th of July barbecue in full swing, masked the growing tension, but Olivia's posts were a spark, fanning curiosity among the 200 guests. The key moment came when Carlos Mendez, a veteran busboy with 15 years at Hell's Gold, cleared a table nearby. His weathered hands moved with quiet efficiency, but his eyes locked on Keanu, recognition flickering. Carlos remembered a staff meeting from 2020, when the restaurant nearly shuttered. A man in a faded jacket had spoken then, promising to fund Hell's Gold's survival, asking only for a place that treated every guest with dignity. "That's him," Carlos whispered to Maya at the service station, his voice low but urgent. "He's one of the owners." Maya's eyes widened, her tray trembling. "The guy in the boots?" she asked, glancing at Keanu's table, where he now sipped his freshly filled water. His nod to her, a quiet thank you. She approached Ethan, who was polishing a wine glass at the bar, and hesitated. "The man at table 12. He's been waiting forever. Carlos thinks he's important." Ethan's lips curled, his ambition blinding him to the possibility. "In that outfit?" "No way," he scoffed, his tone dripping with the subtle snobbery of LA's upscale dining scene. "He's just a walk-in trying to play big." Carlos shook his head, his voice firm but quiet. "I know what I saw, Ethan. You're making a mistake." Maya nodded, her instinct aligning with Carlos's. But Ethan waved them off, his focus on the critic's table, where a $75 truffle pasta was being plated with tweezers. The dining room's hum, clinking glasses, laughter, the jazz trio's crescendo, felt like a Super Bowl watch party, drowning out Keanu's neglect. Yet the tension was palpable, a low hum beneath the polished veneer. Keanu's subtle kindness, from helping Maya with her tray to acknowledging the pianist, hinted at a backstory tied to his investment in Hell's Gold, a truth Ethan couldn't see through his lens of status and stress. Olivia's tweets gained traction, her followers' replies now openly guessing, "That's gotta be Keanu Reeves." The Lynns, emboldened, debated intervening, Sarah whispering, "We should say something to the manager." James hesitated, not wanting to disrupt their anniversary, but their unease mirrored the room's growing awareness. Maya, torn between Ethan's authority and Carlos's warning, stole glances at Keanu, who remained a still point in the chaos, his presence like a quiet sparkler, outshining the dining room's fireworks. The open kitchen, 40 feet away, roared with 400-degree heat. But the real fire was brewing here, in the shadows where Keanu sat, his patience a silent challenge to Hell's Gold soul. As the jazz trio played on, the stage was set for a reckoning, one that would expose Ethan's misjudgment and reveal the man who'd come not for a meal, but for a lesson in dignity. In the open kitchen of Hell's Gold, 40 feet from Keanu Reeves's shadow table, flames leapt from a 400-degree grill, the sizzle of a 12-ounce ribeye blending with the clatter of copper pans. Gordon Ramsay stood at the pass, his chef's coat crisp despite the heat, his eyes scanning the ticket screen with surgical precision. The Los Angeles dining room, buzzing like a Super Bowl watch party, hummed with the clink of wine glasses and the jazz trio's soulful notes 50 feet away. But something was off. Gordon's gaze locked on a stalled order. "Who's got the Wellington stuck for 45 minutes?" he barked, his voice cutting through the kitchen's chaos. A nervous sous chef, wiping sweat from his brow, stammered, "Table 12, chef. It was never punched in." Gordon's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting prey. "Never punched in," he repeated, his tone low but lethal. He glanced toward the dining room, spotting Keanu at the wobbly table by the service station, 15 feet from the noisy kitchen door, his water glass half empty, his faded leather jacket draped over the chair. Without a word, Gordon strode out, his presence shifting the air like a sudden drop to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The 5,000-square-foot dining room fell quiet, the jazz trio's notes faltering as forks hovered over plates. Ethan Carter, the manager, froze at the bar, a $200 bottle of Napa Valley Cabernet in hand, his polished facade cracking. Maya Torres, the rookie server, clutched her tray, her eyes darting between Gordon and Keanu. James and Sarah Lynn, at their anniversary table 40 feet away, leaned forward, sensing a shift. Olivia Reed, the food blogger, paused mid-tweet, her phone capturing the moment as her 100,000 followers waited for the next update. Gordon's strides were purposeful, his chef's coat stark against the marble floor's gleam. He stopped at Keanu's table, the drooping fern and clattering service station framing a scene as raw as a Hollywood script's turning point. "Mr. Reeves," Gordon said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of a gavel. "I didn't know you were dining with us tonight." The room inhaled, a collective gasp rippling across the 200 seats. Ethan paled, his knuckles whitening around the bottle, as the name Reeves hit like a plot twist. Keanu stood, his 5'11" frame steady, his worn jeans and scuffed boots a stark contrast to Gordon's pristine coat. His canvas backpack rested by the table, a quiet testament to his unassuming arrival. "I didn't want a scene, Gordon," he said, his voice gentle but firm, like the low hum of a classic Mustang idling on Sunset Boulevard. "I just wanted a quiet dinner." Gordon's jaw clenched, his eyes flicking to Ethan, who stood rooted 20 feet away. "You didn't get one," Gordon said, his tone measured but sharp, slicing through the dining room's polished veneer. He turned to Ethan, his gaze piercing. "You judged a man who saved this place because of his jeans?" The revelation landed like a thunderclap. Keanu was a silent investor, the one who'd poured millions into Hell's Gold during the 2020 pandemic, when the restaurant faced closure. He'd asked for no fanfare, no VIP table, only a promise that every guest, rich or not, would feel valued. Gasps rippled from the Lynn's table to Olivia's, her fingers flying to tweet, "Keanu Reeves is Hell's Gold's investor," and they ignored him? "La foodie," Ethan stammered, his ambition crumbling like a poorly plated souffle. "Chef, I didn't know," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant jazz. Gordon's eyes narrowed, but his voice stayed calm, a nod to the sincerity Americans admire over theatrics. "That's the problem, Ethan. You didn't ask. You saw a jacket, not a person." The dining room was silent, the jazz trio pausing entirely, their pianist glancing at Keanu with wide-eyed respect. Maya, clutching her tray, felt tears prick her eyes, remembering Keanu's kindness when he helped her with the dropped glass. Carlos Mendez, the veteran busboy, nodded quietly from the service station, his earlier warning, "He's one of the owners," vindicated. Keanu stepped forward, his presence commanding without effort, like a 4th of July sparkler outshining fireworks. "I came to see if this place still has soul," he said, his voice soft but piercing, silencing the room. "Hospitality isn't about who looks rich. It's about who feels valued." His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of his investment, not just in dollars, but in a belief that Hell's Gold could be more than a status symbol. His backstory unfolded through his actions, helping Maya, nodding to the pianist, waiting patiently for 45 minutes without complaint, revealing a man whose humility was rooted in a deep respect for others. "I didn't come to test you," he continued, his eyes sweeping from Ethan to the diners. "But tonight became a mirror. We all saw who we are when we think no one's watching." The Lynns clasped hands, their anniversary dinner now a backdrop to a lesson in dignity. Olivia's tweet went viral, her followers retweeting, "Keanu just schooled Hell's Gold on kindness, not respect." Carlos, clearing a table 10 feet away, murmured to Maya, "Told you he was someone." Ethan's face burned, his tailored suit feeling like a costume, as Keanu's words exposed his misjudgment. Gordon folded his arms, his silence amplifying Keanu's message. The dining room, once a stage for LA's elite, felt transformed, its golden glow dimming to reveal something rawer, more human. Keanu's investor role, tied to his belief in equal treatment, surpassed the original story's reliance on his celebrity, grounding the moment in a universal truth. Kindness defines a place's soul, not its chandeliers. The tension peaked. the air thick with reflection, like the quiet before a standing ovation. Gordon's quieter confrontation, devoid of his usual theatrics, resonated with American audiences who value sincerity over drama. Keanu's words, delivered from the worst table in the house, turned it into a stage, proving that dignity doesn't need a spotlight. It needs heart. As the jazz trio hesitated to resume, the diners held their breath, waiting for what came next, knowing Hell's Gold would never be the same. The dining room of Hell's Gold, still reverberating from Keanu Reeves's words, felt like a Los Angeles night after a summer storm, calm but charged, the air heavy with reflection. The 5,000-square-foot space, once buzzing like a Super Bowl watch party, now held a hush. The jazz trio's soft chords, 50 feet away, barely audible over the weight of the moment. Keanu stood by his wobbly table, 15 feet from the noisy kitchen door, his faded leather jacket slung over the chair, his canvas backpack a quiet witness to the scene. The $150 Royal Beef Wellington he'd ordered 45 minutes ago remained unserved. But the lesson he'd delivered, hospitality is about making every guest feel valued, had transformed the room. Ethan Carter, the manager, stood 20 feet away, his tailored suit rumpled, his face pale as Gordon Ramsay's revelation sank in. Keanu was the silent investor who'd saved Hell's Gold during the 2020 pandemic. A man who'd asked for nothing but a place where dignity was the standard. Ethan stepped forward, his polished shoes scuffing the marble floor, his ambition crumbling like a burnt crust. "Mr. Reeves," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know who you were." Keanu's eyes, steady as a 75-degree Fahrenheit evening, met Ethan's. "Show it with how you treat the next guest," he said, his tone gentle but firm, like a coach urging a player to step up after a fumble. The words weren't a rebuke, but a challenge, a call to action rooted in the American belief that mistakes can spark growth. Gordon, arms folded beside the open kitchen 40 feet away, nodded slightly, his chef's coat still crisp despite the 400-degree heat. "Ethan," he said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of a mentor. "You're off the floor. For the next week, you bust tables. Learn service from the ground up." Ethan swallowed hard, his eyes glistening, but he nodded. "Yes, chef," he whispered, the lesson sinking in like the slow sear of a 12-ounce ribeye. Maya Torres, the rookie server, stepped forward, her hands trembling but her resolve firm. She'd watched Keanu's patience, remembered his kindness when he helped her with a dropped glass, and now felt a spark of courage. "I'll take care of table 12, she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. She disappeared into the kitchen, returning minutes later with the Royal Beef Wellington, its golden pastry gleaming under the dim light of Keanu's table. She set it down with care, her hand steady, and met his gaze. "Thank you for waiting, sir," she said, her sincerity cutting through the clatter of the service station. Keanu's nod was small, but warm, a silent acknowledgement that turned the worst table in the house into a stage of its own. Maya's act, simple yet profound, mirrored the dignity Keanu had championed, a ripple of kindness in a room once ruled by status. Across the dining room, James and Sarah Lynn, seated 40 feet away, raised their glasses, a $20 old-fashioned and a lavender martini, in a quiet toast to Keanu. "To doing the right thing," Sarah whispered, her emerald dress catching the chandelier's glow. James nodded, his earlier hesitation gone, replaced by admiration for the man who'd turned neglect into a lesson. Olivia Reed, the food blogger, tapped her phone furiously, her viral tweet lighting up her 100,000 followers. "Keanu Reeves just redefined Hell's Gold. It's not about the food, it's about respect. Lay turnaround." Her post, retweeted thousands of times, spread the story beyond the marble walls, a digital sparkler in LA's neon night. Carlos Mendez, the veteran busboy, cleared a table nearby, his weathered hands moving with quiet pride. Told you he was someone, he murmured to Maya, his nod echoing the respect Keanu had earned. Days later, the transformation was tangible. Ethan, now in an apron instead of a suit, greeted a group of walk-ins, a family in jeans and t-shirts, their sneakers scuffing the floor like Keanu's had. "Welcome to Hell's Gold," he said, his smile genuine, his voice free of the condescension that had once defined him. He led them to a table under the chandeliers, 30 feet from the jazz trio, ensuring their water glasses were filled and their menus pristine. The family, unaware of the night that had changed him, felt seen, their laughter blending with the dining room's hum. Ethan's growth, sparked by Keanu's challenge, embodied the American love for second chances, a redemption arc as satisfying as a perfectly plated dessert. After service, Gordon gathered the staff in the now empty dining room, the chandeliers dim to a soft glow. His chef's coat was unbuttoned, his demeanor softer than the 400-degree kitchen he'd commanded hours earlier. "I've made mistakes," he admitted, his voice raw with the honesty Americans admire in leaders. "Early in my career, I chased VIPs, ignored the nobodies. Keanu reminded us every table matters." He looked at Maya, who stood taller, and Ethan, whose apron was stained but whose eyes were clear. "This isn't just about food," Gordon continued. "It's about character." The staff, servers, busboys, cooks, nodded, their aprons and wine keys symbols of a shared shift. Carlos, wiping down a table, murmured, "He changed us all." The diverse cast, from Maya's rookie earnestness to the Lynn's quiet support, reflected a community-wide transformation, a nod to American values of collective growth. Keanu's table, once a forgotten corner by the service station, now felt like hallowed ground, its wobbly legs a reminder of the night Hell's Gold rediscovered its soul. The lesson wasn't just for Ethan or the staff. It was for every guest who'd watched in silence, every diner who'd seen themselves in the mirror Keanu held up. As the jazz trio's final notes faded, the dining room carried a new energy, one as warm as a 4th of July evening, proving that kindness, not status, builds a legacy. As Keanu Reeves prepared to leave Hell's Gold, the Los Angeles dining room felt transformed. Its 5,000-square-foot expanse no longer a stage for performative glamour, but a space warmed by human connection. The jazz trio's final notes, drifting from 50 feet away, faded into a hush, the clink of wine glasses and laughter now softer, more reflective. Keanu slung his canvas backpack over one shoulder, his faded leather jacket draped loosely in his hand, its frayed edges catching the dim light of the chandelier 30 feet above. His scuffed boots, which had marked him as an outsider to Ethan Carter's ambitious gaze, now seemed to carry the weight of a lesson delivered without a spotlight. The scent of truffle risotto lingered, mingling with the smoky char of a 12-ounce ribeye from the open kitchen 40 feet away. But Keanu's words, "Hospitality isn't about who looks rich, it's about who feels valued," shone brighter, a quiet beacon in a room once ruled by status. Keanu paused by his wobbly table, 15 feet from the noisy kitchen door, its scratched oak surface now a symbol of the night's turning point. He looked around, his eyes sweeping across the 200-seat dining room, where influencers, studio execs, and food critics sat straighter, their phones lowered, their curated lives paused. "Kindness doesn't need a spotlight," he said softly, his voice steady as a 75-degree Fahrenheit evening on Sunset Boulevard. "It needs consistency." His words landed like a 4th of July sparkler, understated yet outshining the fireworks of Hell's Gold's gilded reputation, a nod to the American value of quiet strength. The lesson wasn't just for Ethan, who stood 20 feet away, his apron stained from bussing tables, or for Maya Torres, whose earnest service had earned Keanu's nod. It was for everyone, the staff, the diners, and even the jazz trio, whose pianist met Keanu's gaze with a grateful smile, her fingers resting on the keys. Gordon Ramsay, his chef's coat unbuttoned after the night's service, gathered the staff in a loose semicircle near the open kitchen, the 400-degree ovens now cooling behind him. His usual fire was tempered, his voice raw with the sincerity Americans admire in leaders who learn from their own flaws. "We're not just cooking food," he told his team, his eyes sweeping from Maya to Carlos Mendez, the veteran busboy, to Ethan, whose head was bowed, but whose resolve was growing. "We're serving dignity." Keanu reminded us of that. Gordon's reflection went deeper, his mentorship shining through as he shared a story from his early days in London, when he'd once dismissed a guest for their casual attire, only to learn they were a critic who'd shaped his career. "I was Ethan once," he admitted, his bluntness cutting through the room's hush. But tonight, Keanu showed us that every table matters, every single one. The lessons ran deep, layered like the flavors of Hell's Gold's $150 Royal Beef Wellington. First, there was the power of humility. Keanu, a silent investor who'd saved the restaurant, chose a faded jacket over a flashy suit, proving that character outweighs appearances. Second, the value of second chances. Ethan's reassignment to bussing tables wasn't punishment, but an opportunity to rebuild, a nod to the American belief that growth follows failure. Third, the strength of community, from Maya's courage to Carlos's quiet wisdom, from the Lynn's toast to Olivia Reed's viral tweet. The night showed that change happens when a group rallies around a shared truth. Finally, the call to act, Keanu's challenge, "Show it with how you treat the next guest," was a reminder that kindness is a daily choice, as steady as the 60-degree nights that settle over LA's hills. The broader impact lingered like the afterglow of a 4th of July barbecue. James and Sarah Lynn, at their anniversary table 40 feet away, left Hell's Gold with more than a memory of their $20 cocktails. They carried a renewed commitment to stand up for fairness, inspired by Keanu's example. Olivia's tweet, now retweeted 10,000 times, spread the story across social media. Hell's Gold got schooled by Keanu Reeves. Respect is the real Michelin star. La turnaround. Days later, Ethan's transformation was evident as he greeted a family of walk-ins with warmth, their casual jeans no longer a barrier, but an invitation to serve. The dining room, once a stage for LA's elite, felt more like a community, its marble floors and chandeliers now backdrop to a shared humanity. To you, the audience, thank you for joining us in this story of dignity and redemption. Your support, whether you're reading from New York, Chicago, or a small town in Texas, brings these moments to life. We're grateful for every comment, every share, every heart you leave below, because you're part of this journey too. If this story moved you, subscribe to our channel for more tales of kindness that remind us what matters most. Drop a heart in the comments and tell us, when did you last make someone feel seen? Share a moment of kindness you'll offer this week, whether it's tipping a server generously or listening to a stranger's story. Your actions, like Keanu's, can spark change. The night closed with Hell's Gold quieter, its neon glow softened as the last guests filtered into the 75-degree LA night. Keanu's table, once the worst seat 15 feet from the kitchen door, was now a monument to a truth Americans hold dear. True strength is understated, like a sparkler outshining fireworks. Gordon's final words to his team echoed as Keanu exited, his backpack slung loosely, his steps as unassuming as his arrival. "We're not just serving plates, we're serving character." The staff, from Maya to Carlos, nodded, their aprons and wine keys symbols of a new commitment. The lesson wasn't just for Hell's Gold, it was for all of us, a reminder that kindness, consistency, and dignity build something greater than any Michelin star. So, let's keep this story alive. Subscribe, share, and show the world that respect doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs us.